Review for Ghostworld. 2001 black comedy directed by Terry Zwigoff. Starring Thora Birch, Scarlett Johansson, and Steve Buscemi. So this movie I've heard about for years. I never watched it. It just looked kind of odd to me, but a lot of people have told me they like it. Especially a number of girls have. And I just watched it and man, I really, really liked it. I thought it was just like pretty incredible actually. Directed by Terry Zwigoff, who's a very interesting director. He directed Bad Santa, and this is very different than that. I mean, they're both comedies, somewhat. This is very dry, sarcastic. That's more just over the top, obvious comedy, but you know, that's a great movie too. I haven't seen the sequel. He didn't do the sequel. And then he directed another movie about like art school kids. And then he hasn't done much after that though. And before this, he directed a couple movies I haven't seen or heard of. So kind of seems like he's a strange guy, but yeah, I really like this. His budget's $7 million. This movie like reminds me of Kevin Smith. I wonder if that is an influence. It's based on a comic book or graphic novel, Ghostworld by Daniel Klaus. I haven't read it, but yeah, Kevin Smith, definitely Clerks. I was thinking of Clerks a lot when I was watching this. Just very, dry humor. Kind of like they like hate like almost everything. Napoleon Dynamite I was thinking of. Obviously it was made after this. And Super, actually. Some of the emotional stuff, like especially the stuff with like Steve Buscemi and stuff, I don't know, kind of was reminding me of Super. A little bit of James Gunn I was thinking of. But yeah, I thought this movie was great though. It basically, Thora Birch, Scarlett Johansson just graduated high school. They're 18 years old. They kind of hate everything. They hate the world. Thora Birch is kind of like, and Thora Birch is the star really of the movie, and she's kind of like an art school geek kind of, and so is Scarlett Johansson, but she's a little bit more mainstream, maybe a little bit. And Scarlett Johansson really wants to get her own apartment, and she wants Thora Birch to move in with her. And that was like their plan since they were little tiny kids. They've been friends forever. And things kind of start to go awry. Because Thora Birch kind of starts to maybe not be into that idea. And she has to take a remedial class to actually get her diploma. A art school class. Because I think she totally flunked out of the other one. Even though she's like an art school fan, she has like she draws. She has like a scrapbook where she draws people. But she just doesn't care at all. She doesn't care at all. Puts like no effort into this stuff. And then they read like an ad in a newspaper where people used to do this, personal ads, and it's Steve Buscemi, and he's like, it's like an ad about like how he met this girl once on a bus and he never got her number, but if you remember me, I'm this guy, I was wearing this green sweatshirt, blah blah blah. So they're like laughing at it, and they're kind of laughing at the idea of this. And so they're like, hey, let's call him and say that we're the girl, and then we'll have him meet us at this cheesy like 50s diner, and wear that jacket so that so we know it's you, and then we'll stand him up, obviously. So that they do that. He goes there, they're laughing at him. They're also with their friend Josh, who works at like at a convenience store. and because he drives them around, and Thora Birch is like, oh my god, he just ordered a giant glass of milk. And then Josh is like, it's a vanilla shake. And she's like, oh, okay. And then he gets stood up, and they're like laughing at him, saying he looks like a loser and all that. And then he leaves, and then they follow him, and then he goes into his apartment. So she's, you know, they think it's funny. And then later, what is it? Yeah, then they both go back to the apartment another day, and he's outside with his roommate, and they're selling stuff. Like, he does this every weekend or something. He's really into like jazz, and he really goes into depth into this. Old school, like, you know, ragtime and stuff like that, blues. And so then they go up. She's looking through his records, and she buys one. And they're still like laughing at the guy, like behind his back. Steve Buscemi's really good in this. He's a great actor. Man, he's been in so many good movies. And but anyways, and then Laura Birch goes home, and she plays the album, and she really likes it. And then she kind of starts to think, no, he's actually cool. Like, what does she say? Like, he's everything. You're the opposite of everything I hate. There's some great lines in this movie. And then she kind of starts to like him and think he's really cool. And then she goes back to him, and she's like, hey, I love that album. Especially she loves this one song on it. And he's like, oh, really? Well, then you should check this out. And then he takes her up to his apartment and shows her some more albums. And then he has like all of these retro kind of things in his house. He has a roommate too that's in it a little bit, but and she just starts to think like, oh, like he's actually really cool. Because he's not a mainstream guy, he's not smooth, he's not, you know, he's a total, basically, like kind of like a music geek for like old, you know, jazz and blues and everything. And then she starts really getting into the music, and this kind of drives Scarlett Johansson away, because Scarlett Johansson gets a job. She's trying to save money. She's trying to get an apartment. They kind of have a split, because she's like, okay, well, when are you going to get a job? Because, like, you need to move in with me. And then she's kind of, like, delaying it. It angers Scarlett Johansson. And yeah, and then she's, you know, getting pissed at her. Like, Thora Birch tries to get him a girlfriend multiple times. They go to a bar. She tries to get a woman to talk to him. He just starts talking about, you know, his love of this music, and he's just boring the girl. Like Steve Buscemi in this movie says, like, I can't relate to almost anyone. But the movie has this really strange tone where, I don't know, for some reason I just enjoyed this movie. And Thora Birch is really good, Scarlett Johansson's really good, Steve Buscemi's good. There's some great lines in the movie. At least I thought they were funny. I could see some people hating this movie though, just because, like, it's super dry humor, they're super sarcastic. She just hates like everything basically. So, and like, I could see people like getting annoyed at them too. They're just like, well, they just criticize everything, and they're not likable. And I could see that. But for me, I liked it. Like there's great lines, like Scarlett Johansson, whose name's Rebecca, Thora Birch's name is Enid, Rebecca says, "This is so bad it's almost good." Enid, this is so bad it's gone past good and back to bad again. And then yeah, Enid said to Steve Buscemi, I think only stupid people have good relationships. I thought that line was hilarious. Oh yeah, and then one of the guys that works at the diner, he looks just like Weird Al Yankovic. and he says, "Hi, my name is Alan, and I'll be your waiter this afternoon." And Enid says, "Hi, Al." And then Rebecca says, "Can we call you Weird Al?" And then he says, I'd imagine so." Yeah, and Seymour, who's Steve Buscemi, says, "I can't relate to 99% of humanity." And yeah, there's very sharp, funny lines, in my opinion. But yeah, I was thinking of Clerks, early Kevin Smith, Napoleon Dynamite, a little bit of Super, too, the James Gunn movie. Like the emotional stuff with Steve Buscemi, I was kind of thinking of that too. Oh yeah, then there's this one part where Enid and Rebecca are in this other diner, and there's this guy, and he looks kind of like what is it, Anton LaVey, the Satanist. She never says Anton LaVey, but he does look like him, and I think that's what they were going for. But she's like, Rebecca's like, "So what do you do if you're a Satanist anyways?" And Enid's like, "Sacrifice virgins and stuff." "Well, that lets us off the hook." And then Rebecca says, "Well, that lets us off the hook." Let's see. Yeah, and then she ends up seeing in Steve Buscemi's room, he has this old kind of racist drawing of a black guy, but it's because he's like an assistant manager in the corporate office of this place called, it's this chicken, like KFC or something, but it used to be called something else, but and from like 1920. So then she's in an art class. So then she's like, "Oh, well, can I borrow that?" And then he's like, "No, this stuff embarrasses the company." He's like, "I kind of stole it 15 years ago." And then, but then he lets her have it. She takes it to the art class. And actually the teacher really likes it because she's like, this is a discussion about racism in America and all this stuff. And then Enid's like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's why I brought it." And this ends up putting her in an art program, like an art show. And she gets a full scholarship to an art college. But then they put it in the art show, and then a bunch of people are outraged about this piece of art, and they want it taken off, and they want it taken down, and then a newspaper takes a picture of it, and this ends up getting back to Seymour and his job, and gets him fired from his job by his boss. So it ends up backfiring on Steve Buscemi. And then throughout the movie, she's trying to get him a girlfriend. She finally gets him a girlfriend because then the real girl who he put the ad out for calls him, and then they go out and they actually start kind of hitting it off. But then they don't really have anything in common, and in the end, Steve Buscemi and Thora Birch do get together. And I kind of guessed the ending, of the movie. They get together, and then instantly Thora Birch regrets it. But Steve Buscemi, really likes her. Because, in many ways, they're very similar people in many ways. But she regrets it, kind of. And then she kind of starts to ghost him. I don't really know why it's called Ghostworld, though. But maybe that's why, because she kind of starts to ghost him. I don't think so, actually. But But then she starts talking to him again, and then she's like, I think I'm gonna leave town, and yeah, so it doesn't really work out, but kind of the message of the like movie, Steve Buscemi keeps calling himself a loser, and and then she keeps saying you're not a loser, like you're actually like one of the coolest guys I've ever met. So I don't know, I like the movie has a pretty good message, I would say. And even though Steve Buscemi gets screwed over because he loses his job, I think he has to move back in with his mom. But in the end, he's in therapy and he's trying to better himself. But yeah, I just really liked the movie. And then after I watched it, I looked up the director and I was like, whoa, the guy who directed Bad Santa made this? Let's see, what's the other movie he made? Art School Confidential. In fact, another director, this kind of, his style reminds me of his Wes Anderson, actually. Like the Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic, so some of that kind of dry, sarcastic humor reminds me of him. But yeah, this director hasn't done much, and and then he did another movie called Budding Prospects in 2017, directed and produced that. This is the only movie he wrote. He's nominated, this movie was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. So there's that. But, I was kind of reading about the director, and you kind of get the feeling that he's kind of Steve Buscemi's character in Ghostworld, like kind of a little bit. Like he's really into jazz, and he made a movie about a jazz musician. Is it Louis Blue Armstrong? Louis Blue. Yeah, that's the movie he made. 1985. Then he made a movie called Crumb in 1995. I haven't seen that either. I've never even heard of those. And then Ghostworld, Bad Santa, Art School Confidential, Budding Prospects, and that's it. So interesting director. I want to check out his other work, but yeah, I don't know, something about this movie I just really like, and but yeah, there's just some great lines in this movie. And then Seymour says, so what, is that your boyfriend about Josh? And then Enid is such a weird name too. Josh, he's nobody's boyfriend. He's just this guy that Becky and I like to torture. And then there's this like little subplot with this old guy, and he's on a bench, and he's waiting for a bus, but that bus was canceled. That line was canceled like years ago. But every day he's sitting there waiting on a bus, and then finally Enid says to him, well, these are the lines. Rebecca, oh look, there he is. Enid, as always, waiting for the bus that never comes. Enid, I wonder if he's just totally insane or he really thinks the bus is coming. Why don't you ask him? Hi, what's your name? Norman. Are you waiting for a bus? Yes. I hate to tell you this, but they canceled this line 2 years ago. There are no more buses on the street. Norman, you don't know what you're talking about. And then in the end, after she kind of, makes peace with Seymour, Steve Buscemi, she sees that the bus comes, and then he gets on it and it goes. And then she goes and packs her bags, and then she gets on the bus. And that's the last shot of the movie, is the bus going off. So... But Roger Ebert gave it 4 out of 4 stars. He loved it. So he says, Enid is so smart, so advanced, so ironically doubled back upon herself that most of the people she meets don't get the message. She is second level satire in a one level world. And so instead of realizing, for example, that she's mocking the 70s punk look, stupid video store clerks merely think she's 25 years out of style. Enid is played by Thora Birch from American Beauty. Oh, that's what she's in, American Beauty. And in a sense, this character is a continuation of that. Yeah, it's kind of like the same character of that one. She certainly looks as her father the same way, with disbelief and mudded horror. Her running mate is Rebecca, Scarlett Johansson. There's a couple like this in every high school. Smart outsider girls who are best friends for the purpose of standing back to back and fighting off the world. At high school graduation, they listen to a speech from a classmate in a wheelchair, and Enid whispers, "I liked her so much better when she was an alcoholic and drug addict." She gets in one stupid car crash and suddenly she's Little Miss Perfect. It's just, yeah, the humor in this movie is like just crazy. But now Rebecca is showing alarming signs of wanting to get on with her life. And Enid is abandoned to her world of thrift shops, strip malls, video stores, and 1950s retro diner. One day in idle mischief, she answers a phone personal ad in a local paper, draws into her net a pathetic loner named Seymour, Steve Buscemi. At first, she strings him along, then unexpectedly she starts to like him, this collector who lives hermetically sealed off from the world of precious 78 RPM records and old advertising art. By day, Seymour is an insignificant fried chicken executive. By night, his catalog, his records, and wonders how to meet a woman. Why does Enid like him? He's the exact opposite of all the things I hate. Why does he like her? Don't get ahead of the story. Ghostworld isn't a formula romance where opposites attract and march towards a happy ending. Seymour and Enid are too similar to fall in love. They both specialize in complex personal lifestyles that send a message no one is receiving. Enid even offers to try to fix Seymour up, but he sees himself as a bad candidate for a woman. I don't want to meet someone who shares my interests. I hate my interests. Seymour resembles someone I know, and that person is Terry Zwigoff. Oh, okay. Roger Ebert knows him. Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was reading about Zwigoff. I was like, is this him who directed this movie? It's his first fiction film. Zwigoff earlier made their documentaries, 2 documentaries: the masterpiece Crumb, 1985, and the comic artist R. Crumb and Louie Bluey, about the old-timey Chicago string band Martin Bogan and the Armstrongs. He looks a little like Buscemi and acts like a Buscemi character, worn down, dubious, ironic, resigned. Zwigoff was plagued by agonizing back pain all during the period when he was making Crumb, and slept with a Crumb does not often meet his match, but okay. So yeah, he really liked it, and yeah, that's what I suspected. But yeah, there's just such good lines like Enid. I think only stupid people have good relationships. Seymour, that's the spirit. But anyways, if you could smash that like button, that'd be great. It really helps the channel. Yeah, I just really like the movie. I'm a big fan. I'm gonna try and watch some of his other movies. I mean, he only made like 2 others that I haven't seen. I haven't seen the documentaries he made. Anyways, yeah, that's about it though. I'll see you next time.